Before I get into the history of the band, I wanted to give you a little of my background. I started making music at a pretty young age, and I think I had my first radio play when I was 14. By the age of 15, 16, I started my first recording studio, and by the age of 18, I became a professional musician. I started earning royalties and income statements, and I would say I did quite a lot for somebody my age, as far as really being in the music business, really being out there making the connections, really going out there and doing the shows. It was a lot from the age of 14 when I did my first performance downtown to the age of 25. And at the age of 25, I just wasn't really feeling that musical spark anymore. And I sort of just let my music career fizzle out. At that point, I decided that my equipment would be better off with somebody who was going to get some use out of it. I wasn't selling it. I was just lending it to somebody who I thought deserved it. And that's where my Uncle Wayne comes in. He just got a spot on one of the main strips in Windsor, and he had a whole basement to himself, so I let him take the equipment there. And throughout this story, Wayne played a really big part in bringing that musical spark back to me. And I think when we used to show each other our old music, he knew. He was just looking at me like, yeah, I'll get him back to it. And then that's right around the time when me and Craig met. Me and Craig met a couple times because just how our work interacted. And then when we finally hung out, it was because he was dating my cousin Laura. Me and my cousin were pretty close, and so over the next couple weekends, with us all spending time together, she mentioned that Craig played guitar. And she had told Craig that I make music, and it kind of piqued his interest, but like I said, I was letting things die down, so I kind of just brushed it off to the side. But one of the times we were hanging out, he did bring the guitar, and we did a little duet. He loved it. I liked it too, but I don't know if Craig had ever been in that position where he was making something good with somebody else. At some point later, Laura and Craig didn't work out, but me and Craig stayed close at that point. And over the next few months, he kept bugging me to get in the studio and work on something, and I just didn't have it in me. I lost all my motivation for creating music. We came to the end of a golf tournament one time, and nobody stuck around to have some drinks and hang out, but he was super adamant that he wanted to grab some more beers and head to the studio. And at that point, I just caved, and I said, let's go. So off we went. We went to Wayne's house, and for the first time in a couple years, nobody was home. And I called him. He said the door should be unlocked. It wasn't. I said, fuck. So Craig sat down on the front step, and he started strumming the guitar, and the melody that he was strumming, it caught my ear. And I said, is that original or is that a cover? He goes, no, I just made it up. And melody started just running through my head. And I said, fuck, we have to get in the studio. So I ended up going around back, climbing up onto a balcony, letting myself in, and boom. That was the night that we made Down This Road. From there, we worked on a few more songs, which were great, and even came up with a name for the group, Chasing Money. We called up a local media company called Aphelion, and we shot a music video. We were moving forward. We knew what we wanted. We wanted to start booking gigs. But at this point, I didn't know much about bands and how they worked. I knew I could emulate almost anything to a certain point, but Craig said we would be better off doing everything live. And, I agreed, but I just didn't know how much work it was going to be. And sometime in September, we started looking for a third for our band. And then October 2019, after a few weeks of discussion with Keith, he was finally able to make it to the studio and talk with us. He listened to the music, he liked it, he had suggestions, and then he started playing a tune that he likes to warm up with. And again, I had that feeling where the melody caught my ear, and that's how we started Fight of My Life. Fight of My Life was not an easy song to finish. Between changing it up from being too repetitive to finalizing the writing and the mixing, it took us a long time. But this was part of the learning curve. We started rehearsing in Craig's basement. We were joined by our buddy Johnny, who played rhythm for us. And the last thing we were missing was a drummer. While our ads went up, we decided to film a second video with Aphelion, and we did a one-day shoot to film Wreck. Finding a drummer was definitely not an easy task. We went through trying out a couple individuals, and finally our ad was answered by a drummer who was new to town named Derek. When Derek joined us, we managed to nail down a director for our next music video, and the beachy summer vibe video was shot for Fight of My Life. At this point, our band was complete and it was time to get to rehearsing. We rehearsed multiple times a week for months, getting tighter. Our equipment was getting bigger and it was getting more advanced. And here went our first removal of a band member. We let Johnny go from the group. Although it wasn't the best scenario for Johnny, he still remains a good friend to us and often still joins us in the studio. And in comes Gabe. Gabe was an amazing guitarist. He took the spot of lead guitar. Craig went back to rhythm, and our set went to the next level. And all of this leading up to the changing of the band name. This is how we became Breaking Echoes. Through the next coming months, our problems as a band started. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, me and Craig were butting heads. Although we were best friends, it was hard to get him out consistently. Between attendance and shitty attitude, it really started getting to me and the guys. This continued for a while, but in that time we shot our next music video for our biggest single to date, No Apologies. We were at the point where we were finally ready to start booking shows. We had all the equipment we needed, we were sounding so good, and then there was COVID. As most of you guys know, COVID brought the world to a crawl. We felt weird about not social distancing, and even if we didn't, we were worried about neighbors calling on us. Bars were closed. It kind of felt like a gut shot. All these years of getting ready and getting the group together and making sure we were going to be the best version of ourselves, and we get to this point. But in this little moment of darkness came a bit of light. We had a local cable television show reach out, and they wanted to interview us and have us perform a couple songs. We were through the roof, and a few weeks later, we were on their stage performing. At this point, as a group, we were on cloud nine. We were excited for what was to come. We were ready for more stages. Things were starting to open back up. And this is where Gabe decided he needed to move on. Personally, I didn't really know the reason why he left. I was puzzled for months. But in the end, he did clarify that we just weren't his style of music. And honestly, I can respect that. Back to looking for the missing piece. Within a few weeks, we were hooked up with Nate. Nate came in, he was a shredder, he was fluent, he was young, he had the drive we were looking for, and he had never been in a band before. Right at the beginning of Nate's joining, our drummer Derek started to become a no-show. Not going to get into too many details about this one, but all I can say is that we had to let Derek go. And Derek, if you see this, we hope you're doing good. We've tried to reach out a handful of times, and my number's still the same, so if you want to give us a call, you know what to do. Yeah, we were back to not having a drummer, but that didn't stop us from being in the studio, and that didn't stop us from rehearsing. Thank God for technology. At this point, we moved all of our rehearsal equipment to a much larger space thanks to Nate, and we moved on. This time around, finding a drummer proved way more difficult than the first time. Although we had a good handful of guys come through, again, thanks to Craig, we had our next drummer, Jay. Jay came in ready to go. He was impressed with how well we performed, and maybe 2 months, Jay was well rehearsed and on point. This is around the time we decided to shoot our newest music video, myself, and thanks to Uncle Wayne, our executive producer, it was possible. We were ready, finally ready to book our first show, but again, with the attendance and bad attitude, it came to a head between me and Craig. We made a group decision to let him go. We loved him. It was great to hang out with. People loved him, but he just wasn't being a good bandmate. It was definitely a hard blow to the band, but at this point we felt like we had no other choice. And then there was Adam. Adam came in as a friend of Nate's. He loved the jam, he took notes, and just like Jay, Adam had everything down within a matter of months. And we did it. We booked our first show. A local sound guy, Bryn, from Backstage got at us, and he wanted to know if we would be willing to open up for a tribute band. We immediately said yes, and not even a week later, we sold out the building. It was a crazy feeling. I just remember looking out into the crowd and being in awe. We were loving it, they were loving it, and it was just a complete feeling of we did it. We managed to almost sell out of all of our merchandise. We got paid extra from the bar because they really liked our set. And a few weeks later, a promoter gave us a shout. He wanted us to be the main act for another event at Backstage. So we talked it out as a group and we decided, hell yeah, it was great last time, let's do it again. So we put in our work, we rehearsed multiple times a week, we got ready, and a couple days before the show, our drummer Jay gets into a car accident. He wasn't doing good. I don't really remember the details of his injuries. I just know that there was something wrong with his back. And at first, he said he would be fine. Everything was going to plan. We can continue. So he kept on trucking. And the day before the show, Jay says, guys, I can't do it. We were scared, I think would be the right word. We didn't want to go out there and not be able to put on a good show, but we also didn't want to let the promoter or the venue down, especially being the headliners. So just like our rehearsals, whenever we wouldn't have a drummer, we put our backtracks in. At no point can I say that that was an easy call, but I already told you the stakes. So me and Keith took a day to make sure that all the backing tracks for the drums were good, and we threw them into our software and we went to sound check. At sound check, the sound guy, Bryn, said, guys, I don't know how this is going to work. I need to be able to control the drums and the backtracks individually. Sound check was only 4 hours, maybe 5 hours from when we were supposed to go on stage. So we went back and we ended up in the studio and we separated all the drums from the backing tracks. And we were just praying for the best at that point. We brought the laptop in, we set it back up, Bryn took control, and by some fucking miracle, we pulled it off. Jay was there the whole time. His wife was managing the merchandise booth with my wife. And at the end of the night, he came on stage. He brought a couple shots because I didn't even realize at midnight it was my birthday. And that was probably one of the coolest happy birthdays I've ever had too. I had a whole crowd singing it to me. It wasn't long after that second show that Jay had some stuff going on, and finally he just said he can't do it either. That one really sucked because I felt like we were there, we did it, we were a top tier band, and just like that, it was getting ripped out from under us. But at the same time, I can understand you have things going on in your personal life. Some things take precedence. So there we were. It was me, Keith, Nate, and Adam. And then that's where Adam said that he didn't want to be a part of the band either, for no other reasons than commitment issues, which also we get. If you can't commit, we don't want to expect it from you and just leave a bad feeling with us. So he bowed out. Then there were three. And there was only three of us for quite a while, because this time around, finding a drummer seemed like it was impossible. It was months and months. In that time, I decided, of course, my first choice would be having a rhythm guitarist, but the second choice would be for me to really pick up the guitar and learn it. And that's what I've been doing so far. And after, I would say, at least 4 or 5 months, our new drummer Ryan came along. And that's basically where this YouTube series started. So that's it so far. That is our history, how we got here. And I guess you're going to have to find out where we're going by subscribing and continuing with this journey.